Hey guys, it's Kim here. Welcome to the Miracosta podcast. I'm here with
Jessica.
And I have to tell myself we are starting the podcast after spending almost 30 minutes talking and I didn't record it. So, my bad. Son of a bitch. Okay. So, what we were talking about is we read our first script for our screenplay writing class, and we read the script for Up in the Air. It stars George Clooney, Vera Farmiga, and
Anna Kendrick.
So, as we were saying, Jessica, what was your take on reading a script for a film for the first time?
I thought the script for that movie was kind of boring. But then we got to actually watch the movie in class after we read the script. And then I thought the movie was, better than the script. So I think that really, proves how much, actors and directors can really elevate a script, if a script isn't that great. Because just, in my opinion, because there were a lot of just, scenes of, George Clooney, his character Ryan, just getting onto airports, getting off planes, getting into arriving at hotels over and over again, and I got bored reading that. But in the context of the film and what was going on, I was able to understand it better just watching it on the screen.
Yeah, it's one thing to read the script happening, and it's another to actually see the final finished product. So definitely a lot of stuff has been filled in, and you don't have to use your imagination that much when you're reading the script. So my experience with reading a script for the first time was I had actually seen this movie in theaters when it first came out. So this was 2009. This was actually my senior year in high school, so I graduated that year. When I saw it, I just couldn't give two shits about it. I didn't really care for it. But reading the script for the first time, and this was the first movie script I've ever read, I actually got a kick out of it. I thought it was really cool to see how it actually works, seeing it written down on the page, see how you transition from different shots or whatever, see how things are written. I thought it was really cool. And then I ended up, I pretty much ended up getting a kick out of reading the script. And then...
So it's basically the other way around for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not care for the script.
Yeah.
The movie I thought was better. You didn't like the movie. You liked the script.
Yeah. So now actually having read this, not only read the script, but I'm older and now I'm paying more attention to movies in general. We're watching the movie over again in our class right now. We didn't finish it yet, did we?
No.
Not yet. Yeah, so we haven't finished the movie yet. We'll be finishing it this Wednesday night. I'm actually getting a serious kick out of the movie itself now. I'm basically seeing it 10 years later with new eyes, so that's really fascinating. A couple weeks back, just after I had started reading the script for Up in the Air, I actually downloaded a couple screenplays online. And one of them that I started reading, and it was really fascinating to read it, was the screenplay for the movie Scream. Mm-hmm. And the script itself, because it was a downloaded PDF of an actual script for Scream, but it was still titled Scary Movie, Scary Movie was Scream's original title before they renamed it Scream, and then Scary Movie ended up taking that title. Mm-hmm. So, which Scary Movie is of course parody of some of the greatest horror films of all time.
Yeah.
Like Scream in particular. So, watching the first scene where, I'm not going to issue spoiler alert because it's been over 10 years since this movie is made, and if you haven't seen it, whatever. But the opening scene where Casey Becker, that whole scene where Drew Barrymore plays Casey Becker, and then it shows the whole scene written down. It was just really, really fascinating, really fun and cool to read something like that happen. I could actually imagine the movie as I was reading it. It was really, really cool to have it finally, to see it finally written down on paper. Oh, this is how they wrote that scene, or that's how they wrote that scene.
Because it's all about the pace of the read, because just like what we were learning, and we've talked about this before, you have to make your script in a way so that
Yeah.
you give the reader the feel that they're actually in the theater watching the movie.
Well, I think what Bolin said maybe was that it wasn't, you're not supposed to write it to tell how to make it. I think you're supposed to just write it to show or tell. Maybe I think you're supposed to write it to just tell whoever wants to make the movie what's happening. You know, so it's not our duty. It's not the writer's duty to dress the set. Remember what he said? That's going to be like the director's decision and stuff. So I guess basically write the general premise of what's happening in the script. So yeah, it was really cool to read that script for the first time as well. So, but yeah. One of the things that we had talked about in our class was the cleverness of writing. I can't talk for shit today. Yeah, so the cleverness of writing, basically, let's say when you have a conversation between two characters, one of them has to at least be attacking and the other has to be defending.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know?
Because it's just based off of real life, because we always get into arguments with people, or like even if we're not arguing, if we're just being kind of like passive aggressive, we're always kind of feeling like overpowered by other people sometimes, or we always want to be in control of the conversation. So it's like, it just happens all the time in real life. So what our professor was explaining to us is that you always have to have one character attacking at one point and one character defending in a conversation, so that, and they always have to tell a truth. So they always have to kind of be in the right, so that it's, you know, like.
So, and then another key thing when you have your characters tell a truth, the truth that you want them to tell is any truth except their own truth. That's when you have the other character tell the truth about your main character, and, you know, vice versa or whatever.
Yeah. It's like the character is telling the other character off about like what they need to do, and like
it's like it's as if it's a form of projection in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically you want to have your character kind of, I guess, dance around the truth. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I love like character dynamics, and I think like this movie really accomplishes it really well, because like these two characters in the movie, Ryan and Natalie, they were completely like opposite in a way in their ideals. She was kind of like uptight, and
they're perfect foils for each other.
Yeah, and he kind of was afraid of like commitment, and he just kind of,
and she pretty much was commitment incarnate.
Yeah,
you know.
So I just love that kind of storytelling, like when two characters can just kind of like clash, because they're just so opposite in their like ideals and what they think, and it's a way of kind of like teaching a lesson in the moral of the story by having the characters just be so different that they can teach each other a lesson and help each other grow throughout the story.
Yeah, and not only that, that kind of goes back into the cleverness of the writing. Basically, up in the air, the script was written in a sense that basically to the trained eye, Ryan was written in a way, or maybe it was Natalie, was written in a way that is Ryan's like fear. You know, like Ryan doesn't like a lot of baggage, and what is Natalie that our teacher told us? Yeah, Natalie basically is baggage, you know. So writing, in a sense, it gets to a deeper level. Yeah, a deeper, cleverly relatable level in a sense, you know. So I got a kick out of the idea that Natalie, for example, she thinks she knows how or what they actually do in their company. Basically, they fire people. So Ryan's character was adamant on firing people in person. It's kind of a very being fired is one of the worst moments of your life, and it's a very emotional, personal thing.
I've been through it.
Yeah. So basically, the cleverness was that Bolin touched upon was that Natalie didn't really truly empathize, I guess, with people who get fired. She doesn't really know the emotional impact that it has. And then the writer writes her into getting fired basically from her relationship, because what happens is that her boyfriend ends up firing her over text, which is a parallel to what she wants to do for the company, which is basically transition the company from in-person firings to virtual firings.
It's like,
so
both
she
of the characters kept getting like their karma like every single time that they were like trying to prove a point to the other character, like something would happen to like bite them in the ass later on.
Basically they ended up having to face their own truth in a sense. So whereas like Ryan and his relationship with commitment or whatever, you know, Natalie's relationship with commitment was that she was all for it. And then she, I guess, had reasons, like she feels there are legitimate reasons to be in a relationship. Ryan feels that there aren't. And they both kind of have their own mentalities or opinions on the matter drastically like changed or even proved wrong.
And they both like really help each other throughout the film. Like you can tell by the end of the movie, like Natalie feels a little bit more confident in herself about how to fire people and everything, so he really like helps her with that. And then the same thing with Ryan, like she helps teach him how to, you know, learn how to settle down and get in a relationship with someone.
So basically what happens with these characters like Ryan and Natalie, they have the decisions they make bite them in the ass later in the movie. For example, Ryan is very isolated. He doesn't really communicate with his family. And then the scene where he finally goes to his sister's wedding, he asks his sister, who is getting married, if she would like him to walk her down the aisle because her parents aren't alive anymore. But she said that, oh, my fiance's dad or uncle will do it or whatever. And then Ryan starts to feel the blow of the consequence of him not really being involved that much with his family, which I thought that was really, really clever writing as well. So basically, he chooses not to associate that much or be involved with his family's life, and basically his family have shoved him into the like the guests and not part of the actual family bridal party and stuff. So I thought that was really clever writing as well, which Bolin pointed out too. So
just a lot of it was like really clever writing. There was also like this thing that he pointed out where there were these two separate scenes where Natalie goes into a world that she is unfamiliar with, and Ryan goes into a world that he's unfamiliar with. Like, so there's a scene like more towards the beginning of the movie where Ryan's used to like going to parties and, you know, things like that, and having alcohol, and because he's kind of more of like a loose, you know, guy that just kind of improvises. And Natalie, you know, she likes to have control over everything. So when he enters that world and goes to that party, she feels, you know, uncomfortable.
Loose.
She feels uncomfortable at first, but then like she
has a few drinks.
She has a few drinks, and then she has a fun time. And then later in the movie, when Ryan has to go to his sister's wedding, there's a scene where, you know, he has to go to like this motel or whatever, and then he's like totally like lost, and he meets like his relatives, and they're like asking him all about like his relationships and his life
relationship
right
that is not really a relationship, and then his sister, who's talking to them and both or whatever, is like, we're too old to call each other boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And
it's just really awkward for him. So they both kind of like experience this moment in the movie where they're just like oh shit, like, I do not know how to function in this area of life.
Yeah. It's like they're so awkward around each other. They don't know how to be a normal family. Because they're not used to it, because they have not been acting like a normal family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing to deal with that is back to the cleverness of writing and stuff, was the scene where we have established that when Ryan goes to the wedding, he's not very he's not close with his family. So something happens where he has the chance to, be there for his sister, and what he has to do is his sister's fiance gets cold feet. So what his sisters are trying to get Ryan to do basically is to tell Jim, the fiance, to somehow go back and not blow off his fiance the day of her wedding. So basically the cleverness of writing is that Ryan has the opportunity to be there for his sister, but in the way where he has to sell marriage to Jim, especially when he actually, he's a commitment phobe. So basically the cleverness of the writing is he's not really selling Jim marriage, he's selling marriage to himself. So it was just really fantastically done, and that whole scene is just...
And it's the way that he explains it is that he says that life is better when you spend it with somebody. Yeah. That's what he proposes to... I mean, no pun intended, propose, because it's a wedding, but... Yeah.
But
that's what he says. That's what he says to Jim, that it's better to spend life with somebody, because there were also little, hints in the movie that Ryan is alone. Yeah. And because there were moments, there was a scene when he goes into his apartment and there's nobody there, and there's just this one neighbor who comes in, and then he has to spend time with her and she can't, and
yeah, because she's now seeing someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's that thing where you've set a lifestyle for yourself, and then there's this one scene where Ryan's talking to Jim, the fiance, at the bar, and Jim's talking to Ryan about their plans and stuff and their home that they're building or whatever, and then he asks Ryan about his plans or his living situation, for example, and he's like, oh, are you still renting that one place? He's like, nope. Are you looking for a place or whatever? And he's like, nope. So that got me thinking about, you think you have everything figured out, but then when you have an outside source talking about your plans, do you really start to realize or feel how awkward it actually is? You think that living a solitary life is cool and fine and dandy, and you're so okay with that, but when you really think about what that entails, or let's say you have someone else laying your cards out for you, do you realize that it's actually kind of awkward, and it's not that great, that it's not as great as you originally thought it was. So I thought that was a really, really fascinating scene for Ryan to basically have someone tell him his hand of cards for him, and then he realizes that that's actually not that great of a hand if you think about it. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really, really cleverly written. Yeah. So.
And then, towards the resolution, when he finally does get all of his flyer miles that he originally wanted in the film, and then he realizes that this is not what he wanted. That was a really clever moment, too.
Tearjerk!
Yep.
We have grown! Yeah.
Because sometimes in life, you think that you want something, and then
you finally get it.
And then you get it, and then you feel disappointed because it's
you've changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really, really great way of showing how Ryan's character has changed, in a sense. So I thought that was really cool, too. Our professor has told us about the use of index cards in the film industry.
Yeah. And I think it's a really helpful tool for writing. What he taught us is to basically take one card per idea. So before you get into writing your script, before you write anything at all, everything starts out with just an idea. So ideas just pop in your head, you write it down, you jot it down on a card, and then you write down the next idea on the next card, and then basically you can see the movie playing out in your head. And I think it's clever, and I've been using that trick, with my writing, because, like, once, it's like, if you think that you have to just write everything right now and have your whole movie or whatever figured out, like, that is not how you write. Like, you have to start small with, like, just one little thing at a time.
Yeah. So have you been doing the writing, like, have you been doing actual index cards, or have you just been writing them down?
Or sometimes I just, like, type it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, if I just have an idea that pops in my head of how I, like, see it or whatever, or, like, I'll visualize it a certain way, then I'll, like, just write that down.
Yeah.
Just type it on my phone or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually what I do. I have an app called Bear. It's a writing app.
Yeah.
If you go on in the application store or whatever, it's literally the picture of the silhouette of a bear and stuff. And it's a really cool little writing app. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think I was really hoping that when I downloaded it was a couple months ago that I downloaded it. I was hoping that I would use it a lot, but my I wanted to use it a lot. I didn't expect to use it a lot. I have, I think, over 30 things that I've written in this app or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I actually do use it quite often, which this morning, for example, I couldn't sleep. I woke up at like 1 a.m. I had so many different crappy thoughts in my head or whatever. And then I ended up thinking up and imagining this one scene or whatever. And I actually ended up writing it down. And then earlier today, I had my creative writing class, and I'm just like, I need to do a micro story. I guess it's basically a short story in less than 1,000 words, right? So I'm just like, oh, why not just use the little short story or whatever? So I actually ended up putting a little more meat on its bones or whatever, and I think I got maybe a bit over 300 words, maybe close to 400 words, and it became like a cool little, possibly a short scene or whatever, but I was just like absolutely blown away because I pretty much just pulled this short story out of my ass. So I'm just really excited about that, and I submitted that. So I like, and that was what I did this morning. Was I got the idea, and since I couldn't sleep, I just grab my phone and I pull up my app and I just write it down. Yeah. I do like a quick description of, or basically a quick generalization of what happens in there, and then I just kind of edited it earlier today. So I just, writing down my ideas is also another thing that I actually do on a regular basis. So I love to imagine scenes and then just write or jot them down or write them down. That's going to be all for today. We're about to be kicked out of here, so we will be here every Monday and Friday. So yeah, I'm Kim.
I'm Jessica.
And you're listening to the Miracosta Filmmakers podcast. Toodles.